The Woman in Cubicle 6B. I was 2 weeks into my new HR job at Veldrain & Co. when I first noticed something was wrong with the new hire. Her name was Mallory Gray. At first, it was just small things, oddities I could dismiss as clerical errors or quirks. She had applied through a third-party agency, and none of my onboarding documents included a physical resume. No LinkedIn profile, no references, just a signed offer letter with handwriting so precise it looked etched into the paper. That alone should have raised alarms, but I told myself mistakes happen. People slip through the cracks. My job, after all, was to support employees, not investigate them. But from the moment she walked into the office, something about her made the hairs on the back of my neck prickle. Mallory was pale. Not just fair-skinned, but corpse-pale, as if she hadn't seen sunlight in decades. Her eyes were a color I couldn't place, like faded green glass left too long in the ocean. She always wore the same outfit, a charcoal gray suit that clung to her frame just a little too tightly, the fabric looking perpetually damp, like it had been pulled from a cold basement floor. And the smell, it wasn't overpowering, but it was always there, a cloying mixture of mildew, copper, and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit sealed in a jar, or old blood dried beneath floorboards. The first time I saw her do something truly unsettling was on a Thursday afternoon. I was making my rounds, conducting the weekly HR check-ins, when I passed her Cubicle 6B, tucked in the far corner near the emergency stairwell. The overhead fluorescents flickered as I approached, casting jagged shadows across the walls. Mallory was sitting at her desk, motionless, not frozen in thought, not paused mid-task, just still. Her hands rested limply on the keyboard, fingers splayed like dead spiders. Her eyes were open, unblinking, fixed on her computer screen, which was off, reflecting only the dim, distorted outline of her face. Then, without warning, her head turned. Not like a normal person, Mallory's head rotated, slowly, silently, her neck twisting in a grotesque, boneless spiral until she was staring at me backwards, her chin resting against her own shoulder blades. I yelped, stumbling back. She blinked once, twice, and then her neck snapped back into place with a sickening crunch, like a chicken bone being twisted apart, and then she smiled. "Everything okay, Mr. Halpern?" Her voice was smooth, almost pleasant, but there was something beneath it, a wet, guttural rasp, like words bubbling up through tar. I nodded, my pulse hammering in my throat. Told myself I imagined it. Maybe she had some rare condition, hyperflexibility, Ehlers-Danlos, something. But it got worse. One morning, a junior analyst named Derek found a symbol carved into the drywall above the break room sink. It wasn't graffiti. It was etched, the lines deep and precise, as if someone had taken a razor blade and pressed it into the wall with unhurried, deliberate strokes. The design looked ancient, like something from a medieval grimoire. A perfect circle bisected by jagged lines and runes I didn't recognize. Some resembled inverted crosses, others twisted, screaming faces. Derek laughed it off, assuming it was a prank. I wasn't so sure. Later that same day, I walked into the women's bathroom and saw Mallory hunched over the sink. Her back was to me, but the mirror reflected her face. Her lips parted, her jaw distended too wide, as thick black sludge poured from her mouth into the basin. It smelled like rust and burning hair, the stench so thick I gagged. When she noticed me in the mirror, She didn't startle. She simply straightened, wiped her lips with the back of her hand, and smiled. "None mortui sed dormientis," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves skittering across concrete. I locked myself in my office and Googled it. Latin, it meant not dead, but sleeping. I told my supervisor, Linda, the next morning. She laughed and told me to lay off the horror movies. When I brought it up in the HR Slack channel, I was met with silence. One guy, Greg from payroll, replied with a clown emoji. Real fucking helpful. Then people started getting sick. First, it was headaches. Migraines so severe employees had to go home early. Then came the nightmares. People woke up screaming about things moving in the walls. One guy, Mark from IT, had a seizure at his desk, his body convulsing as he foamed at the mouth. Another, Sarah, a quiet accountant, had a complete mental breakdown. Security dragged her out as she shrieked that the walls were bleeding. The cleaning crew quit. No notice. No explanation. Just a voicemail from the team lead saying the office felt wrong. Still, no one connected it to Mallory, except me. I started watching her. She never left the office. I checked the security footage night after night. She sat at her desk from 8:45 a.m. until well past midnight, motionless except for sudden, violent bursts of typing that made her keyboard sound like it was cracking bone. Sometimes I saw her walking the halls after hours, dragging her fingertips along the walls, whispering in that same dead language. One night I confronted her. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. She turned to me, her neck creaking like old wood, and smiled. A slow, impossibly wide grin that split her lips until they bled, rivulets of black ooze dripping down her chin. "I am necessary," she rasped. "You people summon things every day in your screens. Every click, every scroll, every transaction. You call, and no one ever answers." Her eyes gleamed, reflecting the flickering fluorescence like dull coins at the bottom of a well. I'm just the one who finally listened. I handed in my resignation the next morning. I didn't wait for a counteroffer. I didn't even clear out my desk. A week later, I got a call from an ex-colleague. The building had burned down overnight. No survivors. All 47 employees were presumed dead. The fire department said the flames looked like they had started inside the walls. They found symbols melted into the steel beams, the same ones carved above the break room sink, and some of the bodies were smiling. I hung up the phone and dropped to my knees. I cried. Then I laughed. Then I cried again, because I realized something. I was the last one to leave, and if I hadn't, I would have been in Cubicle 6C, right next to her. So now, every night before bed, I whisper a prayer, not for my soul, not for my peace, but for the next office she finds, and the poor bastard sitting in 6C. The performance review. After the fire, I didn't work, couldn't work. The office had been reduced to ash and twisted metal, but the real damage wasn't in the rubble, it was in my head. The moment the alarms blared, the moment the smoke thickened, the moment I saw her standing there, untouched by flames, watching us burn, that was when I stopped being human. I became something smaller, something afraid. I holed up in my apartment like a wounded animal, sealing myself away from the world. The blinds stayed drawn, the locks double-checked, the lights always on, as if brightness could keep the shadows at bay. I told myself it was temporary, just until the nightmares stopped. Just until I stopped hearing it, the relentless, inhuman click, clack, click of fingers on a keyboard, moving faster than any human hands should. The sound of bones snapping under the pressure of impossible speed. Groceries arrived in the dead hours when the sky was a sickly indigo and the streets were empty. I moved like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, flinching at every sound. The cashier's cheerful greeting went unanswered. The neighbor with the terrier 2 floors down got nothing but a stiff nod. Even my mother's voicemails pleading, worried, laced with quiet disappointment, went unreturned. But solitude is fragile, and eventually they moved in next door. A young couple, too bright, too eager. Their apartment shared a wall with mine, and from the first day, I could hear them laughter, footsteps, the murmur of conversations I couldn't decipher. The first time they knocked, I held my breath until they left. The second time, I cracked the door just enough to see the woman's unnaturally wide smile. "Hey neighbor," she chirped, her voice like sugar-coated glass. In one hand, a chipped coffee mug steamed with something dark and bitter. In the other, a covered dish that smelled unnervingly like the sugar cookies from the office holiday party. "We brought you a little welcome gift." She leaned in, her eyes glinting with something sharp beneath the friendliness. "Did you used to work at that place that burned down?" The financial firm. My fingers tightened on the doorframe, knuckles whitening. The question slithered under my skin, cold and deliberate. "How did you?" "Oh." She waved a dismissive hand, but her smile never wavered. "The landlord mentioned you'd been here a while. Said you kept to yourself." Must have been traumatic. Her boyfriend stepped into view then, his grin stretching too wide, his teeth just a little too perfect. "You ever get into it with anyone there?" he asked, voice low, conspiratorial. "Like, really get into it? Arguments? Maybe someone who held a grudge?" I shut the door, didn't even take the cookies. That night, the smell began, damp, metallic, sweet, like mildew and copper, and overripe fruit left to rot in the sun. The same stench that had clung to the office in those final days. At first, I told myself it was in my head, just another phantom of trauma, a trick of memory. But then I saw it. Black tendrils creeping from the cracks in the hallway ceiling, spreading like spilled ink. The mold pulsed, breathed, clinging to the corners with an eerie, deliberate intent. Then came the symbols, scrawled in chalky white across the concrete walls of the stairwell, spiraling like some deranged ledger. I recognized one immediately, the jagged circle, the crooked lines, the runes that had burned themselves into my nightmares. The same ones from the break room wall, the ones no one believed me about. I started sleeping with a kitchen knife under my pillow. The locks were checked twice, then 3 times. But locks don't stop dreams. One night, the air grew thick, syrupy, like the room was filling with unseen water. I gasped awake, clawing at my throat, and stumbled to the window, desperate for air, for escape, for proof that I still controlled something in my life. And that's when I saw her, Mallory Gray, standing in the courtyard below, untouched by time or flame. The same damp charcoal suit, clinging to her like a second skin. The same glass green eyes, empty yet knowing. The same small, cruel smile. She looked up, and I swear she felt me before I moved. Her head tilted slow, deliberate, like a predator catching a scent. I didn't think, I ran. clothes shoved into a duffel, wallet, finite phone gripped so tight my fingers edged. I was out the door in seconds, hurtling down the stairs. And then I froze. They were waiting, all of them. Every door in the building stood open. My neighbors, all of them, lined the narrow hallway, silent and still, shoulder to shoulder, blocking every exit. Their faces were blank, eyes glazed, lips slightly parted, as if waiting for a command. Then, as one, they stepped aside, and she walked through, Mallory Gray, the woman from Cubicle 6B, the thing that wore a human shape and worked in HR. She stopped 3 feet from me, her smile widening, her voice a wet, tearing whisper. "You're late." A shudder ran through the hallway. The air hummed with something alive. "Your performance review is overdue." I tried to run. I tried, but they were on me too fast. Hands, so many hands clawing, pulling, ripping. And as they tore into me, as the pain swallowed me whole, I swear I heard it, the rapid, furious click-clack-click of a keyboard somewhere behind her, typing, recording, filing it all away. Every scream, every crunch of bone, every last, desperate gasp. A doesn't forget, HR doesn't forgive, and you can't resign from what you never really left. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It helps the darkness spread. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next nightmare. And remember, don't listen to the whispers in the dark.